Welcome. This is our second breakout session. Our panel is titled Winning Women. My name is Mark Wright, incoming president of Seattle 4, and it's great to have you here. This session really is geared toward Rotarians, women Rotarians in business, and we have a great panel of speakers. I'd like you to please welcome Nancy Lee from Mercer Island, Sherry Storm from Emerald City, and Rosemary Aragon from University. So my role is going to be very minimal, and it's going to be great to hear from all of these women. Nancy's going to kick us off for a few minutes with a speech on her story. Sherry is going to be our main speaker. She'll take about 15 minutes, and then Rosemary, about 5 minutes at the end, and I really want to make sure we have time for Q&A from you in the audience. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy right now. Take it away.
And I'm standing. Okay. Okay. So Patty, I told this story to Patty Darling once, and she said, Nancy, you can tell that story at the Rotary Club for Women. And I said, okay, I will. I'd love to do that. And so my story is about the power of a promise. And I'm going to go back to 1977, and I was entering graduate school at the University of Puget Sound. And I was trying to decide between an MBA and an MPA. I was leaning towards the MBA. It seemed like that would be much more strategic and analytical and competitive and exciting and creative. And so I called my mom and dad back in Chicago. And I said, Mom and Dad, just want you to know, I'm going to graduate school, and I've decided that I'm going to major in business and I'm going to get an MBA. There was this silence on the other end of the phone, kind of like right now here in the room. And after the silence, my father finally said, where did we go wrong? You see, he was a fundraiser for the United Way and worked for the community chest all of his career. He was also a Rotarian. And my mother was a high school art teacher. And to them, the business world was an evil place. And they didn't want their little daughter going into that evil world and worried about it. So I said to them, I tell you what, I don't have to declare this until midway through the first quarter, so I will think about it and let you know. Halfway through the semester, and I knew when I was in the marketing classes that was my passion, and the book written by Philip Kotler, professor of marketing, there was a chapter on societally conscious marketing. And he talked in that chapter about why can't we sell brotherhood like we sell soap? Why can't marketers contribute to the quality of life, not just detract from it? So I called my mom and dad back, and I said, Mom and Dad, I am going to go for the MBA, but I have a promise I'm going to make to you. I promise you that someday I will be a marketer that contributes to the quality of life. Silence. Good luck. You know what? I just want you to know that promise to my mom and dad has made decisions for me in my career for the last 45 years, has guided almost every decision I've made, from the jobs that I took to the focuses that I would take, even to articles that I would read. So I went from graduate school straight to a marketing research firm because I loved marketing research and knew that was the key to success. And I worked in a marketing research firm for about 3 years, and I had 2 clients, Metro Transit and a bank. And the Metro Transit was fascinating. I got to study how come people take the bus, don't take the bus, how can we get more people? And the bank was really boring. It was all about how much more can we raise our overdraft fee before someone will switch to the other bank. I understood that was important, but it was boring. There for 3 years, and at the end of the 3 years, there was a job opening at the bank, and there was a job opening at Metro Transit. And I applied for them, and I was offered them. And I was really torn. I wanted to run to Metro. That was going to be really great fun. And then I thought about my decision, my promise to my mom and dad. Because if I was going to be that kind of a marketer, I needed to know more about marketing. The bank was being deregulated. The financial services industry was hiring people from Procter & Gamble. I would not learn if I went to Metro about marketing if I went to Metro. So I went to the bank in spite of the fact that I didn't want to buy that John Malloy coat that buttons down the camel hair coat. Went there. I was there for 7 years, went from product development to advertising to research, and I was the marketing director at Rainier Bank in 1990 when we were bought by Security Pacific Bank in California, and it was no more fun because they were making all the decisions down in California. I left there and I went to Seattle Children's Hospital, and that is where I learned and discovered my real love in marketing, and it is my classification, social marketing. We did a campaign to help reduce drownings, and the simple behavior that we promoted was for kids to wear life vests on the beaches, on docks, or on boats. We increased life vest usage in 1 year. At the end of that year, I said, oh my gosh, this is the marketing my mom and dad wanted me to do. This is what I want to do forever. What is it? I went back to Kotler's latest book, and it was a book on social marketing, which is all about behavior change marketing. So I left Children's Hospital in 1993 and have been doing consulting and speaking and teaching about social marketing for the last however many years that adds up to. I think that'd be like 34, 24, somewhere in there. And I love it, and it is my passion. I'm now also teaching it in the MPA program at the University of Washington. And when I took that on 10 years ago, I thought, Mom and Dad would be so glad back in the MPA program. So.
Thank you. What a great journey. I don't know how to turn it off either. So I am Sherry Storm, and a little bit about me. I had also been a banker for many years before I had my first daughter. I now have 3 children. They are Rebecca, who is 13, Lexi, who is 11, and Jojo, who is 9. And I found that once I had children, I became better at my job. I was a better problem solver. I was more creative. I had more perspective. I got so passionate about this idea that parenthood makes you a better business leader that I thought, I want to write a book about this. Has anyone ever done that before? You get so... No hecklers, please. I said, I want to write a book. And thank you very much. And, that idea knocked around in my head for about 2 years until one day I was at work and I had suspected a coworker of something. And I asked her about it. And as she began to answer me, I thought, I know that look. I know that. That's the look my 2-year-old gives me when she's lying to me. And it occurred to me at that moment that human nature is human nature, whether we're 2 or we're 62, we're pretty much hardwired the same way. And I thought, aha, that's the idea for my book. So I pitched it around, and finally a publishing house in New York City got back to me and they said, well, we like the idea, but what we're really in the market for right now is an advice book. And I said, oh my gosh, guess what? I love giving advice. In fact, next to my opinion, it's my favorite thing to give. And so I signed a deal with St. Martin's Press. And just really quickly before I launch into my presentation, I have to tell you one story. When the book first came out, it got a lot of press. And the reason that it got a lot of press was this. The way that we in America talk about and teach business really centers around 2 primary metaphors. Battle and sports. And these are problematic metaphors. And I'll start with war. I'll start with the problem of war. When you're talking about business in terms of war, you are not talking about a metaphor that is compassionate or nurturing. You are talking about a metaphor that is take no prisoners, winner takes all, no room for failure. And we wonder why so many people hate their jobs. But the more prevalent problem, I think, is that when we use sports as a metaphor to teach and talk about business, is that it's not accessible to a lot of women. Now, by and large, women don't have the same relationship to sports as men do. Now, I know that there's some of you out there who pay for the ESPN 11 subscription and you love watching full contact body wrestling or whatever it's called, but by and large, that's not really the story for a lot of women. So you've got Business 101, you've got a female student sitting next to a male student, you've got the professor teaching business and he's using sports as the metaphor. The male student is saying, I understand sports, I'm good at sports. Therefore, I understand business, I'm good at business. And the female student might not have the same anchor for her self-talk. And I think it erodes our self-confidence a little bit. But the other thing is, when we're talking about sports, women are not the leaders in sports in our country. And so when you talk about business in terms of the family framework, when you start using a different metaphor and it's family, then you've got a metaphor that is nurturing and compassionate and inclusive and has women in leadership roles. So all this to say, when my book first came out, my phone started ringing because people wanted to interview me. They wanted to feature my book. And I got so caught up in it. I loved being a celebrity. I loved it. I was kind of, my mom was totally nonplussed. I would call my mom and say, Mom, this week I am in Red Book magazine and in Time magazine. And she would say, uh-huh. I would call her and say, Mom, I am on the cover of the Metro News New York and I'm going to be on Martha Stewart. And she'd say, uh-huh. Then one day my phone rings and it's my mom's voice and she says, You're in the Costco Connection? 6 steps to success. Number 1, it's not what you know, it is who you know. This is so very true. But it's true in a different way than a lot of people think. When I think of all the successes I have had in my career, being it as a bank executive, a published author, or in the consulting company that I now run, there is one common thread throughout all of my successes, and it is this. Everything that I have accomplished because I have collaborated with, partnered with, worked with good people. People who are smart and talented and bring out the best in me. So my first secret to success would be find good mentors. Find people who are ahead of you in their careers who can give you advice. Find people younger than you who can tell you about the training that they're receiving this decade, not in the 70s. Find people who can give you good advice. Find mentors. Find advocates. A mentor is somebody who gives you very good advice. An advocate is somebody who actually helps you. When my book first came out, I got a phone call one day, and it was actually, again, Costco, and it was somebody from HR in Costco, and they said, we'd like to hire you to come and speak to one of our leadership retreats. I said, that's fabulous. How did you hear about me? And she said, oh, you spoke at my boss's Rotary. That's an advocate right there. Rotary is teaming with mentors and advocates. Reach out to them. No matter what your age, no matter what your station in life, learn from the other people that you have in Rotary. Next step, ABC, always be curious. Always be curious. One of the first things I loved about Rotary was the fact that every week I got to show up and I got to hear about the most random things in the world that I never knew about. I mean, anything from how smart crows are to the latest cures in kidney stones. I mean, and everything in between. Oh, another piece of advice I would give you, get on your speaker program committee. If you are up and coming in your career, there is no better networking opportunity than to be the person that calls somebody and says, hey, you want to come talk to my Rotary? I've been on my committee for several years now. I read the Puget Sound Business Journal. I see anyone that strikes me as remotely interesting, any company, any person who's had an interesting life experience. I pick up the phone, I'm like, you should come talk to our Rotary. The amount of people that I have met doing just that has been phenomenal. Number 3, understand money. When I was first out of college, I had my spanking new degree in public speaking. There's a laughable degree if I ever heard of one. I just got my degree from University of Washington, and I asked a woman in my company, I was working in a nonprofit, I asked one of the executives to go out to lunch with me and mentor me, tell me, give me advice. She gave me the best advice of my life. She said, go back to community college and take accounting classes. You need to know the difference between a spreadsheet or the difference between a balance sheet and the income statement and a cash flow analysis. And you're 22 years old, take a personal finance course. Learn how to manage your money now. That's not the best advice she gave me, though. The best advice she gave me was, hey, our 401k has this new mutual fund available that's all Pacific Northwest companies. You should put your 401k money into that. So in the mid-1990s, I started investing 10% of my income in Microsoft, Starbucks, Amazon, and Costco. Number 4, learn how to run a really good meeting. Everything that gets done in the corporate world starts with a good meeting. Everything that happens in meetings. If you are able to run a good meeting, you will demonstrate that you can be a good leader. Because if you're trying to move up the corporate ladder, people need to look at you and see leadership capabilities. And one of the best places they can see that is when you're running a good meeting. The great thing about Rotary is you can get good practice doing that. Chair a committee. Run meetings that include your peers and people perhaps above you in status. And also, if you can run a good meeting, a meeting that you get things done and it's efficient and people walk away feeling good about it, you can run a company. Really. Number 5, keep good notes. So a weird thing about me, when I was in 2nd grade, my mom gave me a little diary. It's a little red diary. I started writing it in 2nd grade. I have kept a diary every day since I was in 2nd grade. And I can tell you, without a doubt, the human brain forgets so much. It is remarkable how much we forget. So what I do at the end of the day, sort of my wrap up the day ritual, is I have this spreadsheet, and it has a couple tabs, and it has like accomplishments, notes about colleagues, ideas, conflict. And I just open one of those tabs and I write a couple of sentences. Nothing big, but I just keep this log of various things of my professional life. Now, that's probably OCD overkill, but one thing I would recommend to all of you is keep a running list of your accomplishments, because that will help you in 3 ways. Number 1 is it will help you when it's time for your review. Because if you work for a company like most companies, you get your review once every 12 months, maybe once every 18 months. You can't remember what you accomplished 10 months ago or 6 months ago. Keep a running list of it. It will also help you when that dream job finally calls and you have your interview for the job you really, really, really want. Go back there and read what you've written over the years, and that will give you great answers to all of the questions they ask about why they should hire you. But most importantly, what that list does is when you're feeling down, which every business person does occasionally, you can go back and you can read that list, and it gives you a very honest, authentic pep talk. Last one. Avoid doing stupid things. So I'm going to end my presentation with a little story / PSA. Don't do stupid things at work. No matter how long you've worked at a place, no matter how close and tight-knit you are, even if you consider your coworkers like brother or sister, don't say inappropriate things. And here's my story to end on. When I worked at the credit union, the story is about 2 people, and I'm going to set the stage by explaining both of these 2 people. The first one was a young man by the name of Jay Ho Lee. He worked for me. He was a fairly new employee. He had moved here from Japan. He was raised in a very traditional Japanese family. He was a very reserved, very dignified, he was very. He really considered hierarchy and full of respect for people older than him and a newly married young guy. That's one guy in the story. And the other man in the story is my husband, Dave. We've been married for 18 years. We have a very nice marriage. And one day I'm at work, and I'm working, workity work. My phone's sitting on the table, and I get a text. And it's my husband, Dave. And he says, "Honey, I fixed the stove." Now, I've been after my husband for months to fix the stove, so this was a great text. I look at this text, I'm like, this is fantastic news. Yay. Right on the heels of that, I get another text from Jay saying, "I'm running to Starbucks. Would you like a coffee?" I'm like, this is the greatest morning ever. I do want a coffee. So I text my husband back. God, I love it when you talk sexy to me. And then I text Jay back. "Yes, I would love a coffee. A caramel macchiato, please." Send. Put the phone back down. Workity work. My phone beeps. I look at it. It's my husband with a question mark. Caramel macchiato? Okay, if I sent my husband that text, did I send? Yes, I did send Jay the text. I love it when you talk dirty to me. So I jump out of my office. I run down to his desk, and he's sitting there, slightly shaking, looking at his phone. And if you've ever seen like a combination of confusion and discomfort, those were the two adjectives I would ascribe to him at that moment. And he's looking at his phone, and I walk out and say, "Jay, that was not meant for you. That was not meant for you. It was meant for my husband." And then I could just see the wheels turning. Oh my God, he thinks I'm sexting my husband at work. No, ew. No, I said, "No, it wasn't like that. No. It was the stove. He fixed it." And she's like, "I'm just gonna go to Starbucks." And he starts away. I'm like, can I have a caramel macchiato, please? So avoid stupid mistakes like that. In closing, Rotary, I cannot think of a better place to help women and men be successful in their careers than Rotary. It's a place to find mentors. It's a place to find advocates. It is a place to grow your leadership skills. It is a fantastic place to network. It can't be anything but good for your career. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I'm still schlepping the book if you want to buy a copy. They're $15. A signed copy makes an excellent Mother's Day gift. Thank you very much.
All right, men and women, I'm kind of the wrap-up here. I'm addressing an audience of approximately 2/3 women and 1/3 men. And kind of the point of view I'd like to take is some practical advice, built a little bit on what I touched on last night, but also thank you for your point number 1, Sherry, because that's my jumping off point. And I want to talk about some things I really learned in Rotary that I wish I'd learned earlier in Rotary, but also that I had really learned in my business career. And it has to do with this concept of mentoring and the concept of sponsorship. So I understood all these years what a mentor was. And I had business mentors and I had Rotary mentors, both in my Rotary Club and at Seattle 4 and other places. So let's just talk a little bit about what a mentor is, because you can get one of them, many of them, fairly easily. So we're talking about a mentor, i.e. someone that you talk to in private. They're a sounding board, brainstorming source, sometimes a career therapist. And you talk about, how do I handle these disputes? How do I handle this situation I'm in with the person I work for or my team? How do I break through barriers? What about that work-life balance thing? That's something that you more often talk to women talk to women about, but men need to talk to men about that too, because the work world makes it as difficult for men to have work-life balance as it makes for women. And so having a mentor along the way, both in Rotary and in your business world, is real helpful to give you confidence and tips and a safe way to problem solve. But what I didn't know about, really, till I got into Rotary and was moving beyond the district was the concept of a sponsor. So this isn't somebody you ask to be your sponsor. In fact, if you ask for it, you probably won't get it. So the sponsor, the person that brings your name up in the boardroom, I talked about that a little bit last night. When the conversation in a meeting of senior leaders about who shall we appoint to be a leader to train incoming governors, there's probably a group of, I don't know, 8 sitting there. Who should we appoint? Who would be good? That's where you want one of those people to say, oh, well, I know Kay. You know, I've done this with her. I know she can produce. I've seen her in action. I think we should ask Kay. So Kay's name gets written down. They do a little checking, and they ask Kay. I have recommended Kay because I've seen her work. Somehow I've seen it. Or someone's talked to me, but somehow I've seen that she can deliver. But I also know that when I recommend her, if she bombs, I've lost points. So a sponsor's not going to recommend you if they're not really sure if you're not going to perform. And I will say in my Rotary career, I'm really clear when people have appointed their friends and their friends don't do well. And you know who I'm mad at usually? The person that appointed them. And I have actually seen some really terrifically awful things where people have crashed and burned in Rotary on the biggest stage possible because somebody said their name in one of these boardrooms and they didn't have the skills. And they got to crash and burn in front of a whole bunch of the rest of us. Not fair. But when a sponsor does that, and you want one, you want someone that's going to put their own reputation on the line to say, well, maybe Vija's the woman to do this. Or, maybe it's Kathy. And I know, and this is why. Now, how do you get a sponsor? It's about relationships. It's about maintaining relationships with people, not because you think you're going to use them, but you're maintaining relationships. In fact, men do this a whole lot better than women. And the data that I've seen in a recent Harvard Business Review article said that men are 46% more likely to have a sponsor advocating for them than a woman. Now, that might be because there might be more men in these, quote, boardrooms, but it's maybe because they have maintained their relationships. So one of the things in Rotary, if you want to be effective at what you want to do, let's say with water projects, or you want to build schools someplace, or you want to be a leader of your club, or you want to work in the district, or you want to train future leaders, is you want to build these relationships with a whole lot of people, maintain these relationships so that you can accomplish what you want to do. So those are my 2 concepts. Find yourself a mentor, Rotary business. Maintain relationships because somebody might speak your name based on your performance. And if you get appointed to something and you can't figure out how you got it, it was a sponsor somewhere. And I was very puzzled on a number of my appointments to try and figure out who it was. I've ultimately, years later, figured it out. And it's a good thing I didn't. It's a good thing I performed. Otherwise, I would never have done anything else again. So thinking about this now, both the recipients of the mentorship or the sponsorship is what could we do? What could we women do for other women? Yes, we will do it for men, but yes, let's do it for women, women helping women. So ask yourself when you're thinking about, will I be a mentor or a sponsor? Why am I doing this? What's my goal here? Am I trying to build women for the pipeline of future leaders? Am I trying to build this person to be successful in my club, in this project? What could I do better since I'm now into this relationship, either mentoring or sponsorship of this person? What am I not doing? When am I being reactive versus proactive? And I myself have learned to be more proactive, and I wish I had started doing it a lot longer ago to proactively promote, build, and develop women. I think that is one of the future, that's the future of our organization and our business organizations, that we have really able women at all levels, of all ages, and that we women, like men do so well, we have to learn this from men, can both be mentors and advocate sponsors for women to help them take their role in the winning organization we know to be Rotary. And those would be my remarks, and that gives us time for Q&A. Mark?
That was fantastic. I love these panels because I learned from each of you. I learned a little something. That was great. Questions? Yeah. Claude is the incoming president for the Mercer Island Rotary.
Thank you all for being here. I've been reading recently about women in business, how we are often, not only do we often get paid less for equal work, but we are often judged more harshly when we have a misstep. And I wonder, one of the points that Sherry you were making is not make a mistake, but what do we as women or men in the group, how do you react when a woman in power makes a mistake? Are you treating them the same way as our men? And if you're a sponsor, do you have their back, recognizing with some grace that we're all humans?
Great question. Whoever wants to jump in, or all of you.
I will. I don't pay any attention whether it's a man or a woman. I don't judge a woman more harshly than a man. Have their back. Well, if you recommended them and they crash and burn, I don't know what you do other than, if your relationship is such that you could tell them they crashed and burned. As a mentor, you can do more. As the voice behind the scenes, let's be candid. You crashed and burned with that person. So what you're going to say to them is going to have to be kind of careful. They might not even know that you got them where they got. So that's my take.
Anybody else want to chime in?
No, that question was too hard.
It's a good question, though, yeah.
She
Any
did
other
a great
questions,
job.
anybody? Oh, sorry.
Just to back up on that, how do us women have the courage to do things because we are afraid of crashing and burning or being perceived as, if you're a man, you're a leader. If you're a woman, you're a bitch.
Okay, I'm going to say that's where I think the old commitment promise comes in. So you tap that, well, I said I was going to do this, so here I go. So to me, it gets back to being very focused on your intentions and your commitments and making them.
I would say in the Rotary world, it doesn't, I don't think that, I think women and men can succeed or fail equally. I think Rotary is very forgiving. And think about this. Think about the women leaders you've had in your club. Are they all the same? Nope. Have they all been equally successful? Nope. Have some of them been the best Rotary Club president you ever had? Yes. Has maybe one of them been the worst? Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. So I think Rotary in itself is a really safe place, and I really never heard the B word in Rotary.
And another thing that I have observed is that I think sometimes women are harsher critics on themselves than men are.
That's true.
And so there might be a passing comment that goes in the ear and out the other to a man, where a woman takes it home and ruminates on it and keeps going over it, where the man has forgotten it the next day. And so, I think surrounding yourself with kind people like you'll find at Rotary is a great way to sort of combat that. But also, you just got to do it. You just got to have thicker skin. I don't know. I don't want to minimize the problem of sexism in the workplace because it's definitely there. But I think one thing women can do is just spend more time ignoring it.
I would agree with that. After doing probably thousands of performance reviews, I realized that when I gave a review to a man, he was prepared to tell me about everything he had done well. And the women spent their time, whipping themselves about what they didn't do right. Finally I got to the point of I said, you will not talk to me about what you don't do right. I only want to hear what you think you're doing right. But I never had to say that to a man, ever. So that's another thing. I think women have been, up till perhaps this point, more harsh on themselves. Now, I've forgotten to ask my daughters-in-law that question. I ask them a lot of things. I don't know if you're in your 30s, you're the same as we are. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
May I ask a question on behalf of some of the younger women in this audience who have said this to me, and I want to say this for them. There is a perception that male Rotarians do more business, buying products, buying services from other men than from women Rotarians. Is that your experience? And if so, do you have any ideas, any insights you can provide the young women who are very active and effective professionally?
I don't have any data. I can't even tell, based on the surveys I've seen and even our own club survey, I can't even tell which Rotarians do business with Rotarians, much less if men do business with women or women with women. I cannot tell, but I'm guessing it gets down to that old relationship issue too.
Again, I don't want to minimize experience of other women for sure, but what I have found, I wrote a book called Motherhood is the New MBA, and I have spoken to probably 75 Rotaries about this book. And my publicist said, why do you go to Rotary? Isn't that a bunch of old men? I'm like, it is, but they buy my book. So I have not personally witnessed that.
I have definitely not witnessed that. In fact, one of my favorite projects through Rotary, and this is a volunteer project because I said for the city of Mercer Island that I would do any social marketing campaign that the city needs as a volunteer. And the police chief of Mercer Island, who's a member of our club, after it was announced in November of 2015 that Washington State was the #1 state in the country for property crime, like the worst. So I'm on my way back to get a cup of coffee, back to my seat, and the chief taps me on the shoulder and says, Nancy, can't this thing called social marketing do something about property crime on the island? I said, absolutely. He said, can you come down and help us? I said, I'll be there tomorrow. So I haven't had any experiences other than wonderful ones like that.
I'm going to go back to your question, Jean, because I think it's an issue. I don't think it's a gender issue. I think it's a generational issue of when my dad was first a Rotarian right after World War II, everybody was back from the war, everybody was starting businesses, everybody was looking to do businesses. When my grandfather was a Rotarian in 1919 and in the 20s, it was a business promotion organization for the whole town. So it was all about helping each other in business. And there was clarity about that. I'm not saying they weren't doing service, but they had clarity about working with each other and helping each other. A lot of younger business people in Rotary can't find somebody that's still doing business or active in their careers to help them. Or, they try some person, that doesn't work, they try another one, it doesn't quite work. The benefit of something like Seattle 4 or Mercer Island, the larger the club, the larger the base of people you can talk to, so you can find somebody that's very active in their career or their professional organization and can help you along. But if you have the misfortune of talking to people that have been retired for 15 years, you feel like it's more about they don't want to help you. It's just that they're not as connected anymore. And it is kind of a problem right now for the younger business folks.
That's a good insight.
think that's just about all the time, unless somebody has a burning question. And I just wanted to say, some of my, well, I should say all of my closest mentors in Rotary are female, and they're past presidents of our club. And I can almost count them on two hands. And so I just want to encourage you guys out there that if you don't have a strong mentor of either sex, do it. But I've learned so much from these women, and they're my heroes, really, seriously. So the thing that I want to say to the three of you is your courage is unbelievable, and your wisdom is as well, and thank you for sharing both with us today. So please give a round of applause. Nancy, Sherry, Rosemary, thank you. It's been fun.
Good to